interesting fight at women's strawweight between the Brazilian Gangsta, Livinha Souza, taking on Spider Monkey, Ashley Yoder. And I'm looking forward to this one for a lot of different reasons because Livinha Souza coming into the UFC, a lot of hype behind her, former Invicta champ, and for good reason because she had a big knockout win over Deanna Bennett. Then she knocked out Ayaka Hamasaki, an all-time legend. Then she had a really big win over somebody that we've talked about before. It seems like Miranda, really big common opponent with Invicta fighters in these lower weight classes. And for Ashley Yoder, so far in the UFC, it's been a rough run. I mean, lost to Justine Kish, lost to Angela Hill, that'll happen, lost to Mackenzie Dern, beats Amanda Bobby Cooper, who had a losing record, but overall, she fought really tough competition if you want to look into it in the UFC. Beat Siri Kondo, who went 0-3 in the UFC, and then lost a split decision to Randa Marcos. And it happens, but the weird thing is, if you look over in MMA decisions where we put a lot of stock into those guys, 9 voters voted 29-28 for Marcos. One of them had it scored 30-27 for Marcos. So that first round is probably the contentious one. Ashley Yoder had a really nice hip toss takedown, but again, she got beat up pretty bad in the latter half of the round. So if you scored it for its whole first round, probably went to Yoder, the next two to Marcos. But overall, Ashley Yoder is one of those fighters where she is well-rounded enough. It's one of those things that if you look at it, her striking's probably the best part. Again, I talked about it. She did take down Randa Marcos, who is tough to take down, and she's fought good competition as well. And you look at it for what it's worth, Yoder's going to be a lot longer than most fighters at 15. Huge advantage in terms of height and reach, and I know a lot of people might put a ton of stock into that. The one troubling thing is, with Livinha Souza, you look at all the wins. She comes into the UFC. You win a couple. Alex Chambers, it's a decent win. But her win over Sarah Frota was wild. Go back and watch that fight because Souza, it was totally David versus Goliath. And Souza was a minus 210 favorite in that fight, which was crazy. Frota weighed in at 123 and they let the fight happen. And Souza beat the brakes off of her. So then in her next fight, you think, oh, she's probably going to beat Brianna Van Buren. Had a lot of success in Invicta. Souza was just the minus 125 favorite. Odds were close. That fight totally skewed any stats that if you want to try and draw anything out of Souza, skewed them all if you're trying to look into that kind of thing. Because Van Buren won the fight handily, 30-27s on all of the cards. We haven't seen Souza in over a year, so it's tough to try and tell what you're going to get. For me, on her best day, Livinha Souza, I thought was going to creep into the top 10 in the strawweight division, move even more forward. I thought that she had a really good opportunity. And then Van Buren kind of derailed that train. So this is the opportunity to kind of get back into the groove, get a good win. If you're Souza, if you're Yoder, you get a win over a former Invicta champ, and you insert yourself into that conversation of knocking on the door of the top 15. So it's a really interesting fight in those regards. What do you make of this one?
So I think this fight comes down to one thing. It's who has the better chance of finishing the other. Because when you look at Ashley Yoder, her style isn't really geared towards finishing her opponent. She has kind of that, and I hate to use this term, but she kind of Caitlin Chukagian's her way through a lot of fights where it's tap, 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 and I'm going to move, tap, 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 and I'm going to move. Now we've seen Chukagian, at least in the Antonina Shevchenko fight, really change up her style, show a lot of her wrestling and her grappling, something that we don't really see a lot from Yoder. In some of her fights, she's not afraid of going for the takedown, and the Marcos one especially, which was odd because you would thought if Marcos had an advantage anyways, it would be on the mat. And with Yoder, it's not like she's this thunderous power puncher, or that she has volume like a Max Holloway where she can hit you 1 time, 2 times, and then it just starts to add up until it gets up to, 100, 150 times. With Souza, we talked about it. She can TKO you, she can submit you, really well-rounded martial artist. Now, I understand the Van Buren loss was a pretty bad loss. I know we were high on Van Buren before the Tisha Torres fight, but I still think Livinha Souza has a much higher ceiling than Ashley Yoder. And again, if this fight goes to decision, can Souza win? Of course. If the fight doesn't make it the whole way, who's the more likely one to win? And it's Livinha Souza. So I see this pretty cut and dry.
And I agree with you. This is where, again, it gets weird because the odds right now have Souza the minus 155 favorite, Ashley Yoder plus 130. That was a surprise to me. And then even more surprising was where the odds open. They were at minus 250 for Souza, plus 195 for Yoder. So there's money coming in on Ashley Yoder. It's a bit of a head scratcher to me. I'm sure there's an avenue for victory. We kind of presented it. The fact that Ashley Yoder is very well rounded. If it's on the feet, maybe she has a shot. If it's wrestling, maybe she has a shot there. To me, Souza is one of those fighters that if she's on a straight line moving forward, she's a problem for a lot of people in this division. If it's on the ground or jiu-jitsu is good enough, she's a proven finisher, especially against good competition. Like I said, the Bennett win was a big one. The Hamasaki win was a big one. Over on Tapology to 398 votes, 85% going with Souza, 81% with her winning a decision. Listen, again, there's an opportunity for Ashley Yoder to win this fight. Let us know in the comments who you're going with on this one as well. I'm going to go with Souza. You're going to go with Souza.
I'm going with Souza, and I think she can get the finish, honestly. I just see her, she's the much more dangerous one on the feet and on the mat, so I just think eventually she's going to be able to find the finish. So I'm very excited for this fight, though, and it's a really good showcase fight for the women's strawweight division.
Really looking forward to this one. Really looking forward to this one. Both going with Livinha Souza to get the win. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for the card, including an extended look at our main event, GOAT status, number 3 in the trilogy between Miocic and Cormier. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.